But we'll start with the Roosters, Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. There's a lot going on, so help me out if I stuff up anywhere. Could be facing up to 7 weeks on the sideline for 2 different incidences.
In the space of like 30 seconds.
Yeah, so it was tough. So he's taken the 3 for striking for that headbutt, which I don't know what you were thinking. And I think whoever was the Getty photographer has done an amazing job because they've done it frame by frame. It just looks like they're just having like a really nice embrace, not a huge man mountain headbutting someone else. He's contesting the grading for the dangerous contact. It's a grade 2 at the moment. If he gets done tonight, Tuesday night, 4 matches. If he gets downgraded, it's a fine. Woof! But so either way, he's not playing in the Roosters clash or pretty much the entire final series.
Yeah, so...
He'd be back for the grand final, wouldn't he, if they made that far?
So if he does get a downgrade to a grade 1 for the dangerous contact, and I believe it was Api Coruscant, he'll miss 3 matches, which means he would be back for a prelim final if the Roosters happen to make it that far. But if he's unsuccessful and he cops the 4 weeks, naturally he is out for the rest of the season and the start of next year. I did read that they're possibly looking at whether or not, if he does get the 7 games, whether or not New Zealand's test at the end of the year. And apparently he might not have even been factored into their plan. So I'm not entirely sure how that will work out. Fingers crossed for Jared and for the Roosters that he can get this downgrade and hopefully put himself back in the frame if the Roosters can get themselves deep into the finals. But I don't like his chances.
Yeah, I don't like his chances at all. If it was a clean skin, maybe, but his record, not great.
Yeah, it's not a great record.
So Buzz, he's labelled him as a liability. It was on Monday when he said this. That's usually when he's at his spiciest. Waerea-Hargreaves got 1 year left on his contract. I thought he's been playing pretty well this year. I think they're a better team with him on the park. 2-parter. Do you think the Roosters are better with him on the park? And then, obviously, are you team Buzz or not so much?
I definitely think they're a better team with Jared on the park. We've seen that throughout this year especially. They've obviously been up and down, but the really good performances that they've had, Jared has been leading from the front. He missed the first couple of games, I think, of the season, and they started a little bit shakily. I think they lost to the Dolphins in round 1 and he wasn't there. He came back in round 3 for a big game against South. They won that. They beat Para the following week as well, and he was really good in both those games. He's played 18 games this year. For a 34-year-old front rower, 18 games out of 23 so far. That's not too bad, to be honest. He's had a few little niggles he's had to deal with here and there. I don't think he's been suspended this year, which is a half miracle, but it's come back to bite him on the arse at the business end of the season. Look, I don't think Jared is as much of a liability as some might make him out to be. He does have, the odd brain snap or, he's a player that plays to the line, and there are occasions where he's probably going to step a little bit over it.
Australian cricket team style. We headbutt the line.
But you want someone in your team like that. Any other team, like outside the top 8, I know the Roosters are like 9th at the moment, but they're half a chance of making the semis. They would love someone like Jared in their team that is going to lead from the front. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. If it does, go pear-shaped every now and again, that's just the consequence you've got to pay. But for what Jared has brought to the Roosters over, a decade and a half, almost since he's been in the club, I think calling him a liability is probably a little bit of a stretch. This was a brain explosion the other night. That's all it was. They had the game won. He didn't need to do what he did, both with the high tackle and the headbutt. But for the most part, I think what Jared brings to the Roosters from a positive perspective certainly outweighs the negatives that do come, maybe once or twice a season.
100%. You've been ridiculous, Buzz. You are a goose. No, but all right. So I always put it as if you could have Jared doing that, right? You don't want it to happen, but if that's going to happen from your front row, great. Compare that to maybe who can we throw under the bus? Jordan Rapana. Like tripping Jordan and everything. Rapana. Like, if you're going to have a winger do it,
How does he keep getting away with it? Honestly, it's like every second week he does something. He doesn't get suspended. I think that's what people were saying about Jared for a long time as well, and now it's come back to bite him, as I said. But look, I don't know. Everyone says, the good old days of having an enforcer in your team. Jared is probably the last of a dying breed in that respect. I know Victor Radley has said that, himself and Jared are probably playing in the wrong era, and I probably agree with that to a certain extent. But yeah, he's probably the last true enforcer in the NRL, Jared, and sometimes that is going to work against you. And for the Roosters, they've just got to deal with it. They've got depth there in the forwards. So look, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue for them against South personally, but they would obviously love to have him there.
So you're on the Roosters train.
I think
joining
so.
me.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially with South, like I'm just talking this round 27 clash, which is essentially whoever wins, sneaks into the finals. I think with South missing Latrell, Teddy will be back for the Roosters. Joey Manu's up in the air, but even then, like he played fullback on the weekend, it'll just be Teddy straight back in. The Roosters are in form. South are terribly out of form. I like the Roosters. They will miss Jared, but they've got enough depth there that I think they can get the job done.
Rabbitoh's bringing in dogs for motivational speaking. I just don't know how that works. Jesus Christ, what a place.